Yeah, I think like what we're finding is with the Indigenous artists, they want to work with Indigenous teams as well. And so that's going to translate into more infrastructure around them and across the country. And I think that's really what we need as a community is more presenters, more agents, more labels, more managers, and even people like working in publishing. And so as the revenues start to increase, first through performance and secondly through copyright and copyright management and royalties, I think again it's going to have I don't want to say a trickle-down effect, but it's going to affect the infrastructure that's available to Indigenous folks. And I think like as an Indigenous person, I feel more comfortable working with other Indigenous people because then you can get past all the questions about reconciliation and what it means to be Indigenous and the systemic barriers that you face on a daily basis. Instead of doing that, we can focus on what we're actually trying to accomplish. And so I think that's kind of the affinity that we realize and that we're building together. We also have to build capacity within our own community so that we're able to take the music and these artists back to our young people as well. Because again, it's about challenging stereotypes and being that counterbalance to the racist effects and intents of pop culture.
Yeah, I mean, it's really powerful to have that support network developing within our community. And, you know, I think that part of the reason that's been possible is because obviously it's feasible. It's a feasible career option because there is like I hate to put it into market terms, but there is an appetite for the stories and the music and the art. And so it's really exciting to have that groundswell from our own community of support because I think, you know, as Indigenous artists, often we're crossing a bridge to be in certain dynamics and conversations and having to like really work hard to find that middle ground. And so it's really nice to be able to work with people that understand what we're talking about, where there's no explanations required when we don't want to do a gig or when a gig is really important, even if there's no money there, or you know, we want to talk about these hard subjects and maybe that means it'll never be on the radio, or these things that, you know, sort of industry might advise us on. And talking to another community member, you just don't have to go there.
I think Indigenous music is exploding right now. I think there's a lot going on that the general public isn't aware of. I mean, to answer your question, I mean, radio growth in this country in the Indigenous community is huge. This year alone, 2018, 5 major cities, Vancouver, Toronto, Ottawa, Edmonton, Calgary, all receiving new Indigenous radio stations on top of the radio stations that exist. Sirius XM is airing our program right now called the Indigenous Music Countdown, which is heard 3 times a week. We're also working with Stingray at this time to create a channel that features all Indigenous Music Countdown. We've had major growth in terms of getting knowledge out there, like a documentary like Rumble, The Indians Who Rock the World. It's at Cannes, it's at Sundance, it's traveling all over the world. And I had a chance to talk to Stevie Salas, who worked with the project, and it's interesting to see that the reactions of people from different parts of the world actually learning about Indigenous history. And we have to remember, there was a time where it was illegal to play a hand drum. If you lived in a community and you didn't have permission to have a drum and you sang your drum, you'd go to jail for playing that hand drum and that song, which was illegal. And we've come from that, and this isn't ancient history either. You know, Indigenous people weren't allowed to vote till 1960. So we've come from a time like that to where we are now, residential school systems trying to take away culture. So we're going through a renaissance right now where people are rediscovering their roots, their identity, their culture, spirituality, and that all comes through in the arts.